I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
And we welcome you in. It's another edition of the Daily Puck Drop. It is 10 o'clock. The Daily Puck Drop. It comes your way every single day here on Puck Sports, also on the YouTube channel. Also, you can listen to it on the Puck Sports mobile apps, iOS and Android. Again, on YouTube and X. Just search Puck Sports. He's in the backstage. We'll bring him on in a second, but the go-to guy joins us on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but he's having some internet issues. So I don't know if we'll be able to get to Jim Moore today. Let's bring him on to see how it is. How is your connection, sir?
Not good, Puck.
Not good. What happened? What happened to everything's going to be set? No problems.
We've got a new Wi-Fi, and there must be a hiccup in it. I apologize.
It's okay. You sound okay now. Fine.
Oh, I sound okay now?
You do. I mean, that your mic's not working, but it's okay. We'll make through it. Let's. Here's the deal. Let's make the best of the 5 or 10 minutes that we have together before it all craps out on us. All right. I'm broadcasting for the Puck Sports Studios. Of course, is for the longest time has been built by Limbach Lumber Contractors. They got free deliveries, everything from whole house packages to homeowner DIY projects. Largest stock moldings in the Northwest. Old school service. Folks, because they've been doing it since 1930. Need some lumber? Give the experts at Limbach Lumber a call. 206-782-3487. Visit them online at limbachlumber.com. Follow the show social media platforms, Puck Sports on Twitter and Instagram. TikTok it's still going, so we put all of our video clips up on TikTok, Puck_sports. And still time to sign up to be a Puck's Posse member. Go to pucksports.com, sign up there, just $5 a month, which is literally a cup of coffee. And you get all of the free stuff that we do daily, and in addition to VIP content that we put up there as well, including the dynamic duos with Graz and Gas, which I have unlocked today, free to everyone. Jim is brought to you by
Clean Streak, Puck, professional window and exterior cleaning service out of Oak Harbor, beautiful Oak Harbor. Brian Turner running a great business there, proudly serving Island and Skagit counties for more than 10 years. You can get everything done. It's a one-stop service: roof cleaning, gutter cleaning, pressure washing. They do it all at a Clean Streak. So give them a call. Make sure you don't get up on a roof. I saw a guy on a roof yesterday taking down Christmas lights on his house. And I'm thinking, man, what are you doing up there? But Brian Turner and his crew, they're happy to do it all for you. So give them a call at Clean Streak at 360-395-5748. That's 360-395-5748. Or visit acleanstreak.com.
Okay, Jim, are you in the backyard of the new house?
Yes, I am, sir. I'm in the sunshine. And
can I ask a question because you have Wi-Fi issues? May I ask a question?
I'm praying that we're going to get through this, but I'm having a hard time deciphering what you're saying there. But I think you said congratulations, Jim, on getting a new house.
Can I ask you a question about the new house?
What's that?
May I ask you a question about the new house?
Yes, you may. You may ask me all kinds of questions.
If you have internet problems, why not do the show from inside the house?
I have internet from Verizon.
Okay. You think it would work better inside the house?
I mean, I can go inside if you think it'd be better. I'm only about 10 or 15 feet away from being inside.
It's okay. Hey, listen, you've got how many more days until dry January? 4 more days. Right? Until dry January is over, and then all of your issues will go away because you'll be able to have a cocktail once again in your hand.
Yeah, it's been difficult, Puck. It has. It's been difficult, but I think I'm going to make it.
So, all right. Don't worry about it. You're going to make it. We're all confident in you. All right, we got the Super Bowl is set. We'll get into that. Also, the Klint Kubiak officially has been hired. We already knew about that because I knew about that 12 days ago. All right, because our guy Garofolo told me. I'm going to have an update on the middle school basketball team. We made our debut this week. There's a great MLB story on T-Mobile Park. I saw that you had posted about it earlier. I saw it first from our good buddy Chuck Powell. Old Chuck had posted it earlier or yesterday, and I was just perusing through Twitter. I'm like, well, that's interesting. I'm gonna check that out. It's a lengthy read, too much science in it, but it's fine. And then what else do we got? Oh, I've got something at the end before we pass the baton to the Ground Puck Seahawks podcast people. I agree with Nick. I don't know if you can see this. Our chat is open as always on YouTube and Twitter. Nick says Jim looks like a drunk Pete Carroll. I agree, Nick, but he's not drunk because he's dry January. So he's not quite drunk yet. Did you hear any of that, Jim?
Hey, Puck, I can't even understand what you're saying. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to bow out.
Yeah, no problem. All right, the go-to guy, he can't understand. Now, that could be many of problems there for the go-to guy. It's always an adventure, is it not? It's always an adventure there with the go-to guy. All right, God, we got a lot to get covered today. The Ground Puck Seahawks podcast, Tim Booth and Curtis Crabtree is coming up at around 10:45 or so, and so maybe we'll reach out to those guys earlier. We'll talk to those guys about the Kubiak hiring. We'll get into the Super Bowl. We'll get into it. I've been thinking about this for a bit because I think it's not in the rundown, and I will get to the pineapple on pizza because there's something I wanted to share of a story I came across this weekend that from London that's pretty funny. But it's a deep class for running backs. And there seemed to be this little divide this year with Seahawks fans on Ken Walker and Charbonnet. And that when Charbonnet, like the last few games, was okay, people were like, oh, he seems to be running the ball better. Maybe they shouldn't re-sign Walker. Or, well, he's under contract, but he's got one more year. Maybe he plays it better. Hey, thumbs up. I forgot you can still do the thumbs up on here. For the people listening, for some reason on the video stream, a thumbs up came up. Walker's got one more year left on his deal, and I'm just curious whether or not that they decide if they draft a running back this year. If you read any of the draft outlines about this year's class, it is supposed to be one of the better classes that they've had in terms of depth there for running back. So, I don't know. See if the Seahawks maybe would invest in trying to find a running back in this year's class. All right, let's get to the Super Bowl first, then we'll get into Klint Kubiak. Super Bowl set. Chiefs are favored by 1.5 over the Eagles. The total is 49.5 there in the game. Everybody's mad again that the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl one more time. We'll have more on, we'll get to it a little bit here. We'll have more on for Hey What the Puck about the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl. I was pulling for the Bills. I wanted to see the Bills get in it. We said this last week on the show. I want the Bills to get in it, or wanted them to get in the Super Bowl, but I also wanted them, if they're going to get there, they better win the damn thing, because I did not want them to get in the Super Bowl and then lose it one more time. But just another heartbreak for the Buffalo Bills. And it's got to be just agonizing to be a Bills fan, to be a fan of Josh Allen, who I think most people are. Never come across anyone that doesn't like Josh Allen and the style of football that he plays and how hard he plays. He is just running into an absolute juggernaut and a superstar and a guy that, when his career is over, we will have not going to be a healthy debate, but we're going to have the debate, is he the best quarterback of all time? And it's going to be him and Brady, and we're just going to you're going to stack up the Super Bowls. I can't remember. I should look this up. Does Brady have 7? Is it 6 or 7? I think it's 7. So he wins this year, he'll be 3 away, right? Because he's already got 3. So whether or not he captures that and ever equals him, if he does win, or they win this year in a few weeks, then he's going to do something Brady's never done. He's going to do something that's never been done, the team's never been done in the history of the sport, and that's win 3 straight Super Bowls. That's why it's so agonizing when you think of the Seahawks for a second, when they're on the doorstep of getting back-to-back, of how freaking young they were, how talented they were, but how young they were to come back the next season to win 3 straight. But for Allen and the Bills, yeah, I think the majority of America was pulling for him. One, if it's the fatigue of the Chiefs, I get that. Totally understand. You've seen the same people over and over again. Andy Reid and Kelsey, Mahomes, it's just the same MO every time. But and so you want to see something fresh and something new. And I think for Allen, and for those guys that have so much heartbreak in the postseason, have always figured out a way to conquer the Chiefs in the regular season, but can't get it done in the playoffs. And their heartbreak in the Super Bowl, to go to 4 straight and lose it every time. They seem to be a great fan base. They're fun as hell. And again, they just come across as likable. And God, they were right there. They were there, and they had every opportunity to win it. And it was a great game. It was the edge of your couch, your seat game. I said it. I made a comment, I think, on Twitter yesterday. I just wish these two teams could play in the Super Bowl. This should be the Super Bowl every year, because every time they play in the postseason, it's an epic game. Just is. It always delivers. It has never not once delivered when those two teams meet. But he just can't. He can't get through. He just can't push through because of the superstar that is Mahomes, and the superstar combo that is Mahomes and Andy Reid. Maybe one day he does. I like these. I pull for the storylines of someone like Allen, who has, and the Bills in general. But we put a lot of focus in on Allen, right? Because the narrative today, or the talking points today, aren't, oh, the Bills lost again. It's that Josh Allen lost again. It's that Josh Allen couldn't push through and beat the Chiefs. It's Josh Allen's legacy that's on the line. It's not the Bills' legacy. It's not Sean McDermott's legacy. It's not Dalvin. It's not Dalvin Cook. It's not Cook's legacy. It's Josh Allen. That they'll remember that, hey, when you had the ball last or second to last, you couldn't get the job done. And I was hoping that when they got the ball back after their defense, had held them, pushed them back. By the way, did they not miss a penalty? Could they not have added on? Am I mistaken? Could they not have added on a 15-yard penalty? Or does the sack take it away? Because the Chiefs' right tackle ripped the helmet off of the Bills guy. Should they not have tacked on 15 more onto that or not? I don't know. Anyways. But when he got the ball back, and I said, is this his John Elway the drive moment? He's been compared a lot to John Elway. And just in terms of his, he's bigger and faster, but in terms of the way he plays, kind of the style of which he plays quarterback, Allen has always drawn the comparison to Elway. Was this gonna be his moment where he got the ball, just like Elway did against the Cleveland Browns to get to the Super Bowl? Would this be the time, and would this be his drive moment? And it just didn't work out. First play, I can't remember the first play. First play was a running play, which I didn't understand the running play. Why wasn't Cook in the game? If you're going to run the ball, why isn't Cook in there? They run the ball. They're behind the chains. The second down plays, I think that play over the middle, which it could have been intercepted. I don't know what happened on the route. The third down play, is that the bubble, or do they run the screen in the middle, and then they get to fourth down, and obviously we know what happens there. They all out blitz, and not all out blitz. They get the corner blitz, and he gets away from it initially, throws it up. And again, it would have been a difficult catch. It was a difficult catch, and it probably, maybe not a difficult catch once it broke it down, but the fact that he had to stop, come back to it, and make a diving effort at it. I think it was a harder catch than it appears when you slow it down, right? When you slow it down on video. But it is certainly a catch that Dalton Kincaid makes and should make, and should come down with it. And it's going to be a play that, no doubt, for the entire offseason for Kincaid is going to haunt him. It's going to haunt him for the entire offseason that he couldn't come up with that. Had he come, that's one of those plays you think if he comes up with it, you're like, okay, they're going to win the game. There is no doubt they're going to win. It's like, I don't mean to bring it up again. It's like when you go back to the Super Bowl against the Patriots. I'm convinced more than ever. When Jermaine Kearse made that catch, I'm like, it's over. They're going to win. You don't make some circus basket catch like that and then not win the game. I remember being at the Super Bowl, running to the little concourse where the beer guy was. They still had beer sales, and they weren't cutting them off, and grabbing as many beers for my buddies who possibly could get to celebrate at the end. And then, of course, didn't celebrate. Drank those in protest and agony and bitter taste of defeat, which is common for me, always tasting the defeat. But, he didn't come through one more time. So that's kind of the narrative there on Josh Allen, is that he couldn't will his team to win. And I'll be honest with you, because you haven't seen him do it, and you've seen no one do it against that team, that when they did get the ball late, I was probably like all of you, skeptical. I'm skeptical that he was going to do it. I'm like, he's not going to do it. They're going to get a pick. Something bad's going to happen, a turnover, what have you. But they're not going to get the job done. Like, in the back of my mind, had it been the opposite, had that been Mahomes with it, like, he'll get it done. Even when they got the ball back late and the Bills still had all their timeouts, I'm like, he's going to make a play. He's going to make a play that ends the game. And then he did. There's a lot of balls it takes to make that play to P. Ryan out in the left flat. It takes a lot of guts to call that and then to execute it. As for a head coach to have the belief in your quarterback, which he should, to make that throw. Think about it. How many coaches or coordinators call that? Probably not a ton. Book would probably tell you, hey, listen, just run the ball more, take time off the clock. That's probably what the book would say. But what I like about them, and there's a little note in Albert Breer's piece today at SI.com where Mahomes was talking just about the play calls of Spagnuolo and the play calling there of Andy Reid, saying that we don't play with fear. We play to go win the game. That they install this belief and this trust in us to go out and make the next play, and that's certainly what they did. And again, I understand the fatigue. I get it. But there is part of me, and we'll address more of it at the end of the show with Hey, What the Puck. You got a chance to see history, and I think we're all here, because we're sports fans. And if it's not your team that's going to win it, and it's going to be somebody else's team, I like to see history be chased, and I like to see history accomplished. And it's why I wanted to see one of those guys break Dickerson's record this year. Records are meant to be broken, even though Dickerson didn't want anybody to break it. This is something that, we may never see again. And for the Chiefs to do this in this climate of professional football, where it's built not to do this, it's built not to have these teams. It's funny how we have a dynasty in football, which is set up for parity. We don't have, it could be the start of one. We haven't had a dynasty in baseball in a sport when you can just buy everyone. Now, maybe we're in the midst of it now with the Dodgers. Dodgers go out and win again this year. Then they win again next year. And then everyone's going to complain about it. And, they're just buying championships. There's no salary cap. This is not good for the sport. Again, you've got a cap in this sport that is set up to prevent this. Yet, because they have nailed the two most important things that you have to have, and we all know what it is, and it's not groundbreaking. You got to nail the head coach, number one, and the quarterback. You have to have it. And despite all these teams running the ball more, and this year's Chiefs defense or team is really based on defense more than anything, and that's the totality of it all, and why they're back in the Super Bowl, and why they had the regular season success, and why they had home field advantage, and all of it. Ultimately, the biggest slice of that credit goes towards the defense and what Steve Spagnuolo did. But at the end of the day, when you got to have it, and you got to have a play, you've got to have a quarterback that can execute that, and he's the best in the game. Might be the best of all time. Here's the thing that two more things from that game. Actually, two more things from yesterday's games. Eagles destroy the the Commanders. Looked like it would be a great game. Commanders march all the way down the field, only end up with a field goal. Eagles get the ball back. Barkley touchdown, and then kind of back and forth. And then it looked like it was going to be a game going into halftime. Down 1 score, punch the ball away, turnover, game is just over. There's just snowballs on the Commanders, and it's done, and then they're finished. Here's the two things. One from that game. I don't mind the quarterback rugby scrum. Like I'm a fan of it. And I don't get the complaining. Now there's a twofold to it. I don't get the complaining about it. It's a play. You can't stop it, then figure it out how to stop it. Here's what I don't like about it. It has to be a flag or illegal to push him from behind. You can't do that. And they need to revisit it next season. But that goes for, it's not just the tush push. It's for any time I see a running back carries the ball, gets in, 4 or 5 yards, hit, and then all of a sudden here comes the lineman pushing the pile, and the refs don't. This is what I don't understand. The refs don't blow the whistle. They allow the lineman to drive them down, 6, 7, 8, 10 more yards down the field, and then eventually, okay, whistle, plays over. But riddle me this. How come when a running back is stuffed at the line of scrimmage, and then you've got 7, 8, whatever, all rallying to the ball, where then they drive the running back, quarterback, offensive player back 6 yards? Why don't we blow the whistle right when his momentum is stopped? Right when it's stopped. His forward progress. Right when it stopped. They blow. No, we stopped the play. Yet when the forward progress is stopped for the offensive player, we just okay, let's casually wait. We don't got to blow the whistles yet. Let's let the tub of goose come up and push him for another 5 or 6 yards. Why do we allow that? I don't get it. It should be illegal. You should not. I don't like. So the Eagles get away with it because they do the tush push and the guys get behind them, and you got Saquon Barkley who can squat 1,000,000 pounds, so can hurt. So it's an effective play. Now, I like it if you don't push the guy from behind. We outlaw any help. It used to be you couldn't do that. The famous, I can't remember what the rule in college was. I do think in college it was a rule. Someone's got to remind me. I can't remember exactly. But the famous, the Bush push. I think it was illegal that you couldn't do that. They just didn't call it USC. That was Pete Carroll, right? Reggie Bush pushing Matt Leinart into the end zone when they beat Notre Dame. But just make it illegal. I'm tired of seeing that. I'm just all of it. The other thing about that game, we all raised our hand, had never heard of that rule where Frankie Louvu, shout out Go Cougs, is jumping over every time to time it up. And then as they keep putting the ball closer, then the guy's like, all right, stop. Hockley. If that happens again, we can rule a touchdown. Really? That's a rule? They can just rule a touchdown? And it almost seemed like they have the authority to rule a touchdown anytime they'd like. All right. I'd like to get one of these refs on the take and just say, you know what? I think he was going to get in the end zone on that QB scramble. We're just going to say touchdown no matter what. All good. So no one had ever heard of that. And you're lying if you have a buddy or someone that's on your TV tells you, oh, I knew that rule. No one knew that rule. No one knew that rule at all, that they could just sit there and award a touchdown. All right, so that we got to get rid of. And here's the other one. First of all, Josh Allen on the quarterback sneak. And before we get to that, I am surprised that he and the Bills are not good at quarterback sneaks. Doesn't ever really feel like they pick him up. Maybe he's too tall to do it, but he's a big, strong guy. But it doesn't seem like he ever, even when he does get the quarterback sneaks or picks up a yard or whatever it is on fourth down or a couple inches, that he never ever gets it easily. That it's kind of like a struggle for him. But the fourth down one, which they ruled that he was short, right? You got the FAR official coming in. He's signaling he got it. The bottom official's coming up saying, no, he didn't get it. Okay. And I've seen this on Twitter, and it's exactly right. Because it may surprise you, but there's a lot of things that are going to surprise you about me. I'm a big tennis fan. I love watching tennis. They've got a technology that sits there and allows you to see on whether a ball is in or out. Okay? And they can challenge it. The guy calls it out, and then, well, let's challenge it. They go to the video, and they show this technology of the ball, whether it hits the line or not. How, in this day and age, of the technology that we have in this world, I mean, my God, from smartphones to, well, let me put on my blue light glasses. From glasses, look at the blue light glasses, the Meta glasses that have computers in them. How do we not have the technology that has a chip in the ball and has an actual line across the field, a laser of something that they can go and look at and can tell with the chip in the ball that when it hits a certain point, the line to get, that it says, oh yeah, we go to video, the ball got there. This sport, with the billions of dollars that it has, the unbelievable mass popularity that it has, relies on a couple of fat dopes like me running a chain still to this day. And then they waddle out there, they put it down. These are guys that are, stuffing their faces with sandwich, some subs before the game, probably getting a gift card to a restaurant to go volunteer their time. I mean, these guys, they're like your rec league coach or something, like 6th grade hoops. And yet they're out there measuring with the same stupid chains we've had for 1,000 years watching football. Can we not come up with something better now to let us know whether they picked up the first down or not, or whether the ball crossed the goal line? You're telling me we can't come up with something? My God, we've gone to space. We've landed on the moon. We're going to go to Mars one day. But yet we still have tubs of goo on the sidelines, tripping over themselves, getting in the way of coaches and players tripping over of a chain. Still to this day, a chain. We've got to fix that. They've got to rectify that, like now, okay? Because this is ridiculous. We can't have no more chain gang in the NFL. All right, that's my Super Bowl thoughts. We'll have more on it on Hey What the Puck. If you're joining us here on a Monday and wondering where Jim Moore is, the go-to guy, he joins us on Mondays, brought to you by Clean Streak. He was with us for about 2 minutes. Then he has moved into a new house in Bend, Oregon. They have set up their Wi-Fi, but apparently didn't check the Wi-Fi. So he couldn't hear anything. And he could not get any proper connection. So that's why he is not with us here on a Monday. Shocker. Now, this does now count as missing work. So when he says he's never late or misses work, this is another one that counts against him. Klint Kubiak hired as the new Seahawks offensive coordinator should not be a surprise to any of our Puck Sports listeners, because about 11 days ago, Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network was on this show. He's on every Thursday and told you this.
He's in the driver's seat. I think that's what I put out there. Second interview, first in person, and you go, okay, I can figure out where this is going. So, I would say I would handicap him as the strong favorite right now.
Why Klint Kubiak? Why do you think that they came to that conclusion?
So they want to marry the run game with not only the pass game, but the defense and what they do. So the zone run plays and everything off of that, the ability to play action off of that, to boot off of that, he got off to a great start this year. Lost Eric McCoy, the center, and I know you're probably saying, like, of all the people he's going to mention, that the center was a huge part of that. Huge part of that. So you see the potential that is there if your personnel is right, and if you don't have the rash of injuries that the Saints wound up having on the offensive side of the ball this year.
So again, that was about 11 days ago, where Garofalo said again, hey, he's in the driver's seat and he's going to get the job. Now, and then it didn't happen right away, and you're like, oh God, Garofalo, were you wrong about this? When is he going to get the job? They ended up interviewing a bunch of other guys. Hank Fraley was in the mix. There is no way they offered Hank Fraley the OC job here in Seattle, because I think his wife was on social media and said, hey, we almost went to Seattle. They probably offered him a run game coordinator spot and said, hey, you can come be the run game coordinator, maybe. Or maybe they offered him to run the offensive line, be the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator. And then he said, I can just for that, that's not really an upgrade to me all that much. I'm just going to stay in Detroit with Dan Campbell. Because he got elevated in Detroit, but he's not calling plays. He's not the offensive coordinator. So he didn't turn down Seattle's offensive coordinator hire. I just believe that Kubiak was the guy all along. I bet you they wanted to pair Kubiak up with him maybe and have him work with him. And maybe they'll still find someone that can be, quote, this run game coordinator. I don't know. This feels like a new thing now, this run game, pass game coordinator, yada, yada, yada. I just, Kubiak's the guy. He's going to call plays. He's talked a lot in the past about how much the run affects the passing. He comes from a system that runs the ball. And this is the whole Mike Shanahan tree. So again, and the Mike Shanahan tree, you go back to all the years he was a head coach and coordinator in the NFL, and, of course, his son Kyle and all that. They are the bread and butter of that system that he will bring in is running the football. This is exactly what McDonald wanted, probably wanted in the first place, probably thought he was going to get it with Grubb, didn't get it with Grubb, so now he pivots, and now he gets it with Klint Kubiak. But this is it. This is everything that you remember from watching the Broncos win back-to-back Super Bowls, the offensive system that you see Kyle Shanahan run, which I believe is Clint's other brother. Is he on that staff? I think he might be on the OC of that team as well. Again, this is all based on running the football first. That the run sets up the pass and all that. His time in Minnesota when he was the offensive coordinator with the Vikings in 21, and then he was the offensive coordinator with the Saints this past season. The first two games were great. I mean, my God, their offense was humming. They suffered a bunch of injuries. Garofalo did say, I think it's in that interview, and he talked about it in that clip too. I may have taken it out. They do say that, hey man, that offense took a dip when they lost their center. Then it just everything kind of unraveled after that. They never were the same, and then the injuries started piling up on them. So again, do the numbers overall look great in New Orleans? No, there's nothing that stands out. You're like, oh my God, we've got to go hire Klint Kubiak. Nor were they probably as great as the first two games there of the season. But for Klint Kubiak, this is the type of hire and the type of offensive coordinator that clearly Mike McDonald wanted. And he's got the resume and he's got the past of being someone that likes to run the football. So it's not going to be something where he's going to come in here and you're going to see the discrepancy between running the football and passing the football. Curious thing is just, what else do they add? You still have to have the offensive line. And then they can sit there and they're going to want to run the football and be as physical as they want to be. But if they can't block up front, can't do that, then there's just so many running plays that you're going to call. They're just going to run right into a brick wall, which reminds me of one of the greatest things yesterday in the pregame of the NFC Championship game. Now, when I tweeted this out, people were like, God, he's just such a terrible announcer. And I'm not saying he's great, but that wasn't the point of the tweet. The point of the tweet yesterday that I put out, pre-game, where they do their, it's Kevin Burkhardt and Brady, and they're doing a little breakdown of the game. They're like, all right, here we go. What's the keys to the game, Tom? The first thing he says, well, Kevin, KB, everything's KB. Hey, KB, key to the game is whoever controls the line of scrimmage. If you control the line of scrimmage, you can control the running game, and if you can control that, you'll win the game. And everybody, I tweet that out and everyone rolls their eyes like, really? Oh, great insight. That's not the point. The point wasn't it wasn't a great insight and you wanted something more from your announcer. The point was we really, really, really overcomplicate this stuff. And he's right. That is the key to the game. It's the key to every game. That's why when people come up with all their, what are your keys to the game coming up this week? And everyone gives blah, 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 bunch of BS, yada, yada, yada. There is one key and one key only. Every football game, every single week, you control the line of scrimmage, you're most likely going to win the game. That's it. And then they did. That offensive line for the Eagles, freaking mammoths, man. I think every guy is like 350 pounds. I mean, Jesus. Those holes that Barkley has running through them. So, again, back to the Seahawks. You run first offense. You can make a commitment to running the football and all of that. It's great. And it sounds great, and I love it. And I like that style of football like everybody else. I mean, I like running the ball. I like physicality. Wears the other team down. Not only just physically, I think it wears the other team down mentally. I think they start to crumble late in the game. When you run the ball down someone's throat, it's humiliating in a way because what you can't stop is the physicality of it. Passing the ball all over the place, I mean, that's a little soft. Running the football, I mean, that's football, right? That's that physicality that man on man, you just can't stop us, and that's what the Eagles do, and that's what's going to give them a great chance in the game against the Chiefs. That's what gives them a great chance to keep the ball out of Mahomes. Keep the ball out of his hand, shorten the game, shrink the game, and just physically beat up the Chiefs there on the ground to see if it works. So, again, for Seattle, the biggest question mark will be, I'm excited about Klint Kubiak. Sounds great. Familiar name. I don't think it's a retread hire. He's had success with the Vikings that lone year he was there. He has been, what I like about, he's been around great minds, including his dad, who was around Mike Shanahan. He's around Kyle Shanahan because he was the passing game coordinator, QB coach in 2023 before going to the Saints. People with New Orleans have cited great things from him. Cousins had a great season in 21. They ran the ball with Dalvin Cook and with, who was the backup? Madison, I think, was the backup for the Vikings at that time. So he had a commitment to running the football. And those offenses that he was working with were very successful. So, again, and I like just more who he's worked with, who he has been associated with. And I think that, we talked a lot about that with Rob Staten from Seahawks Draft Blog and made this point to him. I wanted Mike McDonald just to look in the mirror and go, all right, what's the style of football that gives us the most problems? What's the style? And, if he answered it, that Shanahan tree gives us the most problems, then boom, there you go. That's the issue. All right. Hey, What the Puck coming up in about 5 minutes with Tim Booth from the Associated Press and Curtis Crabtree from Fox 13. I do want to get to this story, MLB.com. So MLB.com put this story out there. Jim had retweeted it earlier, but I was already reading it before he put it out. And it's about and it is an incredible read, about the elements at T-Mobile Park. And I want to give you the reporter's name. Give me 1 second. Because there's a lot of work. Mike Pettarello, I believe is how you say his name. I'll give a shout out to Mike, but also working on Daniel Kramer worked on this story as well. They had a data scientist, Clay Nunali, that worked on it. Jason Bernard there as well. And the title of the story is MLB's most extreme ballpark isn't in Colorado. The most extreme ballpark is in the Pacific Northwest. And they go through all of the factors of why it's so hard to hit there. Now, most of this stuff you kind of know. But they talk about the splits between the Mariners hitters on the road opposed to being a home. The most revealing aspect of it, though, was when they got into the splits talking about the pitchers. Because when you start looking at the pitchers really benefit a lot from pitching at T-Mobile. They use an example of looking at the splits of Andres Munoz. At home, Munoz splits was a 0.28 ERA. His strikeout percentage was 43%. On the road, his ERA ballooned to 4.28. Strikeout percentage was 25%. And Dylan Morse quoted in it, said, "Hey, it's hard to hit here. It just is." He struck out 34% of the time at home compared to 24% there on the road. OPS higher. Again, just every single thing is higher or lower at home compared to it and on the road. All this stuff is obvious to everyone, but to see them break it down, and they looked at a bunch of different factors. It's not only just, well, what is it? The dimensions of the ballpark. Is the ballpark too big? They look into the weather being a factor. Something I didn't know, the average temperature they use the entire season is 62 degrees for T-Mobile Park, or for here, right? That's the coldest in all of baseball. So weather will play a factor into it. They played a factor into the wind, but not so much the wind above. It's the wind in between. I mean, they really went into the weeds on this one. The wind between the pitcher's mound and home plate, and how much the wind affects the pitches and affects the breaking pitches there in terms of how the wind circulates in there. And it also talked about the dimensions of the ballpark, which Bill Kruger, to me, was not the first time, but it had been mentioned before in years past, how it's skewed. That the batter's eye, and Teoscar talked about it at the All-Star break with Adam Jude, how the batter's eye is skewed, that it's off. And so that factors in. Basically, the whole thing is like the weather, the not having good players, but the weather, the wind, and then the batter's eye, all contributing to the issues there at T-Mobile for hitters. And they also mentioned the sun, too. There's something about the sun and when it sets at a certain time. But the irony of it all is it drastically helps Mariner pitchers, and their numbers are all way up at home than they are on the road. The one thing that I found interesting about the article was, you've heard like J.P. Crawford say this a lot, and other players talk about, hey, just close the roof. If you close the roof, everything's going to be okay. And then they did this dive when they looked at, I think, last year all the way back to 2018, that actually closing the roof has like zero effect. Like none at all. It might be better for the fans, maybe keeps it a little bit warmer in there. But when they looked at it with the roof open over the same span of that time frame from 18 to 24. I know this is boring, everyone. I'm going to get through with it, and then we'll be done. We're going to talk to Tim Booth and Curtis Crabtree coming up momentarily. Over the span, hitters at home struck out 26% of the time. They slugged .383 with the roof open. When they closed it, which all the players say they want the roof closed, they think it helps them. And maybe it's just psychologically it helps them, so we'll see. But they struck out 27% of the time, and they slugged .355. So there you go. Doesn't help. Not at all. It's just amazing. It's just an amazing job done there by the folks there at MLB.com. All right. I think we're waiting on Curtis Crabtree, but let's just grab him early. Ladies and gentlemen, Ground Puck Seahawks podcast. We do it every Monday. Season's winding down. We've got a few more visits with these guys. Tim Booth is with us from the Seattle Times. We'll talk. Curtis Crabtree will be with us momentarily from Fox 13. Tim, before we get to the Seahawks, have you read that story on the from MLB.com yet?
I scanned some of it yesterday. I haven't.
Yeah, you got to scan. It's a scanner.
Yeah, I haven't delved into the whole thing yet, other than the just the kind of the headline that the park factor of T-Mobile was greater than any sort of park factor that you have at Coors Field in Denver. But hey, good on them for nerding out and doing that kind of deep dive on things.
Wait till you get to the part when they start talking about the wind. And how the wind comes in between the mound and home plate. You're just like, your eyes are circling around in your head.
Well, the jet stream that time of year creates a wind that blows through the left field gate and swerves through the pen and spreads the Axe body spray smell throughout the ballpark, and therefore affects the trajectory and the distance that the ball travels for those months of the year. I don't know. I mean, good on them. That's great.
I like what you said. Also joining us is Curtis Crabtree from Fox 13. Follows Curtis there on Twitter at Curtis_Crabtree. For Tim Booth, it's at by Tim Booth. Of course, they cover all sports. We talk a little Seahawks with them, the Ground Puck Seahawks podcast. We're going to talk about Klint Kubiak getting hired, their thoughts on the Super Bowl, and a question about Kenneth Walker moving forward. Curtis, let me start with you. Championship games. Boy, we thought we were going to get a good one in the NFC, and then it turned into a dud, and the AFC was another classic between those two teams.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, kind of goes on the same discussion we had a week ago. Turnovers changed that NFC game completely, with Washington just being unable to hold on to the football, and that took a game that seemed like it was actually going to be pretty competitive and made it one that wasn't very quickly. So, and then yeah, I think the Buffalo Kansas City game was everything we thought it was going to be. Those, whether it was those two teams or whether it was Baltimore in there, I think any of those three teams would have put a great game on the field yesterday. And I feel bad for Josh Allen and that Buffalo team because they just can't quite get enough to get to that place that they want to go in the Super Bowl. It's a very good football team. Josh Allen is a hell of a quarterback, and they just keep coming up that little bit short because there's a big old red thing in the way of them that they just can't get by. So, yeah, unfortunately for them, it is what it is, and everybody that hates it has to watch more Kansas City Chiefs football in 2 weeks and Taylor Swift and deal with all of that again that they hate to watch.
Oh, so. Are you grumpy about this now?
No, I have
sure.
no issues with it. I'm just poking fun at the people who do because I think it's funny as hell.
Yeah, like Tim. Tim has a problem with Taylor Swift. Always has.
No, I'm fine. I don't lump me into that realm. Okay, I don't need that kind of hate mail coming my way.
Hey, hey Tim, and Curtis, you answer after Tim. Do you feel? I'm not Chiefs fatigue. I don't want to get into that. You feel sorry for Josh Allen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel sorry for that franchise that you have a generational franchise quarterback right now, just like you did in the Jim Kelly era back in the in the early 90s. And that team obviously did get to a Super Bowl and couldn't finish the deal. This is a team that just happens to be running into one of the guys that we're going to talk about as being in the of the elite greats, when the time ends because of what he has done from a success and production standpoint on the field. I saw a bunch of people last night making the comparison to the Bulls in the 90s, and I actually think there's some validity to that. I mean, think about the Sonics. Think about the 96 Sonics. That's a team that in an entirely different era of the NBA with the amount of talent they had. They not only win one title, they probably win 2 or 3 titles. And they never had that chance because one, they kicked their chance in 94. But then when they finally got there in 96, who was back? It was, the greatest player we've ever seen. So yeah, I kind of equate it to that. Like I feel genuinely sorry for Bills fans that they have this guy who is that damn good that 30, the rest of the league would take in a heartbeat, maybe with the exception of Kansas City. As their quarterback, and they just keep running into this one team that finds a way to get the best of them.
Yeah, and I mean, the AFC has been pretty parity free for like 25 years now. It was either the Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger teams, or now it's the Mahomes, Allen, Jackson teams, and you're not getting by any of the three of those if you're somebody else. And then there's the one team at the top of it in Kansas City that even those other two teams can't get by. And yeah, I mean, you can throw Lamar into that conversation too. Both of those guys are absolutely 100% deserving of playing for, winning Super Bowls, and they just can't get past the Chiefs. And I mean, maybe that speaks to what the Chiefs are doing right now more than anything, is that they do have legitimate competition every year to try to get to the Super Bowl from some really good quarterbacks and football teams. And they find a way to win these games, and it's really impressive at the end of the day that they're able to do it. How much you want to lay on the referees aside or whatever. I know that's a conversation, but their ability to win one-score games throughout this entire season long, despite having their obvious flaws to that roster, is pretty impeccable. Pretty amazing they've been able to do it.
And guys, just for a league, as you know, right? And you guys also, I mean, you cover everything, so you know what baseball is like. For a league that is set up not to allow this. They're not there. It's literally set up not to have this. They want parity in different teams. And yet here the Chiefs are following right on that run of what you said with the Patriots. It's amazing what they've been able to do.
It'll be interesting to see if the other shoe ever drops with the Chiefs. I mean, because you got to think at some point, something's going to catch up. Mahomes contractor, Kelsey, how much longer he decides to play, or the fact that they pulled Juju Smith-Schuster off the street and turn him into an adequate receiver and trade for DeAndre Hopkins. Like at some point, it's got to catch up with them, right? Like, but to put together the run that they have, as you point out, in a league that is predicated on parity and creating opportunities for other franchises to rise up and compete for a championship, it's got to go down as one of the most impressive runs we've ever seen from an NFL franchise that's on par in some ways, maybe even a different kind of impressive from what we saw from the Patriots, because the Patriots was in segments. You had your first run, and then you had a little bit of a step back, and then they went on their next one a little bit, and then they went on their final kind of run there with Brady and Belichick. What the Chiefs have done in this window now is, it's not unprecedented, but with the way the league is set up now, it's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think I sit back as a sports fan and just in awe of it. And I like they're likable to me. I like to see teams chase greatness, and they've got a chance to do something that the sport has never ever seen before, and to have an organization win 3 straight championships. So again, I get the fatigue. I understand. I mean, I was pulling for the Bills yesterday, financially and emotionally was pulling for the Bills. So, but I wanted them to win because I'm a big Josh Allen fan, and I wanted to see him push through and win it, overcome that Mahomes, bridge, and then win the whole thing because of that franchise and that city and everything they've had to go through. So I don't know. We'll see in a couple of weeks if they can do it one more time and see if the Eagles can stand in their way. All right, what do we make of the Klint Kubiak hire? Curtis, I'll start with you first. Reactions to nabbing the 37-year-old.
It seemed like he was probably at the front of the line among the candidates that we'd heard reported. He's got, history as an offensive coordinator, a couple different spots, brief stints, both in Minnesota and New Orleans, the passing game coordinator stint in San Francisco. That Saints team got off to a really hot start offensively here this year before injuries kind of undercut what they were able to do. They obviously didn't win a single game not started by Derek Carr this year. Spencer Rattler, that whole thing did not work out, which is why their offensive numbers are down towards the bottom of the league. They just weren't able to sustain in the same way without their starting quarterback in the lineup. But I think they've had some good things that they've put. His teams have had some good things that they've done through the years. Whether it's been Minnesota, whether it's been New Orleans when he's been the coordinator there. But I can't say I know an absolute ton about him as a coach at this point. But like you were talking about before we hopped on, it seemed like he was at the front of the list, and for them to get him, for them to get the guy, it seems like they wanted, is certainly a good step in the right direction, I would think.
Yeah. Tim, what are your thoughts, your reaction?
We talk about trees in the NFL. Like, what tree did you come out of? Did you come out of the Bill Walsh, Mike Holmgren tree? Did you come out of, this one or this one? You don't get much more direct out of the Mike Shanahan tree than having Gary Kubiak's kid as your offensive coordinator. Yep. So that's, there's some hallmarks with what Mike Shanahan and what Gary Kubiak, when he was a head coach, what they would run. A lot of play action, a lot of outside zone runs, kind of some limited receiver kind of, how many guys you'd send downfield, how many you'd keep in for protection. It's a little bit, from what I've read and from what I can remember, I think it's a little bit more of a old school kind of system, which I think meshes well with a defensive minded head coach. It's not going to be, it is not going to be the Seahawks in shotgun, 70% of the time or whatever it seemed like this year. You're not going to see the check with me that you always saw with, they'd come up to the line in a hurry and then they'd check it kind of in that college sort of way. You're going to see probably more under center. You're probably going to see a lot more play action. I think I was looking at it. The Seahawks were 26th or 27th in the league this year at the amount of play action that they used, whereas the Saints were 12th. So you're going to see a lot more of that aspect of the game, I think. And then it's going to be a matter of what kind of, how do things develop in this, downfield in the passing game? Is it, and where does DK fit into that? If he's still here, how does JSN fit in with that? That'll be kind of the sort of the developmental part that'll be interesting to watch. But I think if you want an example of what it's going to look like, Kirk Cousins had a Pro Bowl season in 2021, threw for over 4,000 yards, but it wasn't necessarily this, 5 wide shotgun spread kind of system. It was a more traditional kind of NFL type system that you think of.
Tim and Curtis, Curtis, because we've worked together for years. Tim, I've been around you forever, so I fit into this. My personality. I like my coffee black, Curtis. I like an old school newspaper. You know what else I like? I like getting under center. I like a quarterback's hands touching another man's ass. I think there's something very American about it, Curtis.
Well, yeah, I probably. I don't.
Curtis, have you ever had your hands on another man's ass? It's comforting.
After all this time, Puck, I still don't always understand how your mind works. But it is what it is, I guess, right? No, I mean there's validity to that, 100%. When you're playing out of shotgun all of the time, like the Seahawks were, doing far more regularly this last season, with the offense that they were running, it limits what you can try to do. So having the variability to do that effectively will probably help the run game a little bit more, help play action, and all of those sorts of things work in their favor more.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. If you're going to smoke, get an unfiltered cigarette and actually smoke, all right? You're going to do damage to yourself no matter what. In my America, just do it. Don't vape, okay? So that's the dumbest thing in the world. All right, that's it. That's one more thing I wanted to add. Tim, you want to follow up with?
Well, I was gonna say, so mid '90s, I was in high school.
Yeah.
Dennis Leary came out with a comedy hour.
Oh yes.
And it was on HBO, and he ranted about flavored coffee, like how he went into 7-Eleven and just lost his shit about the fact that there was flavored coffee and not just coffee flavored coffee.
Yes.
And that entire bit has stuck with me for 30 damn years. And I feel like you and Dennis Leary are kind of cut from the same cloth in that way. I feel like I could have watched a comedy hour where he went up to, he ranted about the fact that a quarterback's hands need to be on the ass of his center, and that the shotgun is like un-American or against his personal value system.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm as you're talking, I'm having flashbacks to watching that comedy hour when I was like 17 years old.
I kind of want to go back. I kind of want to watch that now.
I don't know if it holds up. I don't know if it holds up the test of time, but it was very funny back in 1990.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, Curtis. You're not a coffee drinker. I mean, a splash of milk in there is fine, but I'm not putting a bunch of other stuff in it. All right, okay, just and I like a good paper. Just it makes me feel good. And here's the thing: is I just, in all seriousness, if I can spit it out, I think we've got caught up in this. It's like where everybody's in shotgun all the time. And I don't know. I think sometimes, there's the mystery, and it's effective. It's always been effective where, you turn your back to the defense and you can't tell whether or not the guy's got the ball or not. And then boom, a guy's running downfield. And I mean, we know how effective play action can be. And that's the funny thing about play action, Curtis, is how effective play action can be, especially under center, when you don't even run the football. That there's always this, because there's this natural hesitancy for linebackers to freeze on it. Even though you're like, they haven't run the ball, so I don't, but I don't know. I'm excited about it. To Tim's point, Curtis, especially of the tree of people that he's been involved with.
Yeah, and certainly, we've seen really good rushing offenses with quarterbacks under center and play action games and what that can do. And I mean, obviously, with the way that football's been analyzed recently, and as you mentioned there, the fact you don't even have to have a successful run game for play action to be effective off of it, certainly, it's a lot better than standing in the shotgun, taking it, handing it to the side, letting everybody see what's kind of going on there. I mean, there's some deception in that and everything too, but it's a little bit different than when the running back's running straight downhill from 8 yards behind center and getting moving in a certain direction. So, I mean, it's not going to having the quarterback under center is not going to solve the Seahawks running issues by itself or anything. You know, there's other parts of the conversation that
Sure.
need to go their way to make it all work. But I think it's just one other thing to have in your playbook that's a little bit more than, at least have it more regular than what you saw out of the offense this year. And with, I mean, certainly with Kubiak's history back to even when his dad was an offensive coordinator at different spots along the way, his teams were able and capable of running the football. You know, whether it's the Arian Foster with the Texans or back to the Broncos in the day, like those were teams that could run the football pretty well. They know how to do it. And you would like to hope that some of that is rubbed off on Klint when he comes in to be a part of this group here.
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was just gonna say that, you know, it's not a referendum on guys who don't necessarily have NFL experience as offensive coaches, but you know, in some ways, we've seen the college game infiltrate the NFL more and more, and that's not a bad thing. But what I think Ryan Grubb was trying to do was take a college offense and bring it to the NFL, and it didn't work. It didn't work, and so this is not as drastic a course correction as you could take, but to go back to Mike Shanahan's coaching tree and bring in a guy who's straight from that lineage of understanding what it takes to coach, you know, offense in the NFL, I think is a pretty drastic, you know, change. And I'm curious to see how it's going to play out. You're not going to see it's not going to be a college-like offense that you see next year, unlike what I think we felt like we saw, not only, you know, for a significant portion of what this year was with the Seahawks.
Okay, I'll ask both of you this question. Curtis, you can go first on this one. Will this new offense, will Klint Kubiak have DK Metcalf?
I think he will. I think he will. I mean, while I've talked about the case for making the decision to move on from DK, I just can't see a situation where they would do that unless they're trying to have a reset here going forward. You know, at the end of the day, if you're not going to keep DK, then is there, you know, a massive need to try to keep the quarterback too, or just make those moves and try to reset things and move in a different direction altogether, taking those assets and resetting more of a long-term kind of thought. I think ultimately DK is a part of this. They give him a long-term contract, and it makes sense to do so. But, you know, when I've said that, I've just been trying to make the case for maybe a different way of thinking on that front. I still think that offense can really hum when Jackson Smith and Jigma and DK Metcalf are a part of it. So I would be surprised if they make that decision. I think it is a possibility, but I would tend to lean towards him being a part of this thing still.
I think I lean yes. And the example I would lean on is kind of what his offense was like this year in New Orleans before they had all the injuries take place. You had Chris Olave, who, I don't know, kind of is a JSN clone. Like, they both went to Ohio State. They both kind of are similar body types. Like, they seem to run similar routes. Like, they look very similar at playing that position. And then you had Rashid Shaheed, who was more of like the push the downfield option, but he's a smaller guy. And if you have 6'3" DK Metcalf that can push, you know, downfield and be a little bit more of that threat for them, you know, it's a marriage I think that could potentially work out for them. And yeah, you still have the long-term questions of what that means for you know, DK's future beyond next year and Geno and everything, and how are you going to pay him if you're holding on to him, whatever. But that's all the math that falls on John Schneider to figure out. I think if you're talking about the scheme and what makes the best sense for the Seahawks offensively, I think it could work nicely to have DK come back and pair those two together in this kind of system.
They don't got to make a decision. They don't have to make a decision this year what they're going to do. I'm going to be really curious, Curtis, when the draft comes around, if what this team does later in the rounds, if they select a running back or not. Because if you read up on the draft, one thing that pops out is it's very deep in the running back class. Got a lot of bodies there. And we know with the running backs that the shelf life of these guys, they don't last long. You don't want to make the mistake of paying one of these guys because then it's like, oh, you pay one and then all of a sudden they break down and now you've wasted money on them. So Ken Walker will be going the last year of his contract. And there's, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, seemed to be this thing at the end of the year when why am I blanking on the backup running back?
Charbonnet.
God, oh my, Jesus. Hold on, let me take a sip of the bourbon. When Charbonnet had a little bit of success, people were like, hey, I mean, Charbonnet looks a little bit better than Ken Walker. Like, I'm a huge Ken Walker fan. No one can run like he can. But some would make the case, well, Walker hesitates and jumps around too much, doesn't just hit the hole. I'm still a huge fan of Walker. But I'm curious of how Kubiak sees him and how he fits the system and how the organization feels about it. With Curtis, a draft that is very deep in running backs, I'm curious if they will dip their toes late in it. Not early. I'm not advocating for that, but I wanted late. And if they do, does that signal anything that they feel about that room right now and the future of it?
Yeah, I would expect them to. Because I mean, all three of their running backs are in the back half of their rookie contracts now. Like, I mean, at this point, so where even Charbonnet is, 2 years under his belt, so he's got 2 years left on his contract, while McIntosh and Walker each have just the 1 year left. So yeah, I would think drafting a running back would make sense for them to continue to restock that group for the long term. Whether that means you change any of the pieces you currently have, I don't know. That would be the other piece of that. If you would make a decision on one of those two guys to get ahead of where things are going, I don't know how they would handle that. But yeah, I mean, if it's a deep running back class and they are looking around and understanding that those guys are in the last year of their deal or 2 years left in their deal and looking to keep refreshing that room, I absolutely see them considering a running back in the later stages.
Tim, you feel that's the case? You can see them doing it? Just don't do it early. If they do it early, my God, this city will burn.
They have way other needs. They should absolutely not do it.
Hey, Curtis, I know that, and so does Tim. But yeah, I'm telling you, they had other needs the last time they drafted Charbonnet.
You mean you don't want them to draft Christian Michael at the start of the second round?
No, I don't want them to do that.
But no, to your point, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, they don't necessarily have, they have a couple of skill position questions they need to answer. What's their number 3 receiver? Is it Jake Bobo? Where, all of us assuming that Tyler is going to move on. Running back, obviously, I agree with Curtis. They need to, in the 6th round, take another flyer on a Chris Carson type of guy, or someone along those lines of what they've gotten for value options later in the draft, especially at that position, especially because it's deep. But yeah, I mean, they can't take 11 offensive linemen as much as everyone in the world would like to see them do that. They still have to sprinkle in a few other guys, and I would think running back and wide receiver and probably tight end are probably the three skill position spots that seem to be the most need based of adding some depth there.
Pete Carroll, I just saw a video. Pete Carroll did the introduction video. He's in Las Vegas. He's meeting everyone. We haven't talked since this became official. Tim, Pete Carroll back in football, head coach of the Raiders. Thoughts?
I'm happy for him. I mean, that's an organization that when they have had success, they have had a culture-based head coach. When they back in the 70s with Madden, in the 2000s with Gruden, in the early 2000s, they've had success sprinkled, even with Tom Flores in the early 80s. They've had success sprinkled in here and there, but when they have been one of the premier franchises in the league, they've had a coach who has instilled a culture about who they are and what they are. And for being a storied franchise like that, for the history that comes with it, for being in a place like Las Vegas, yeah, he's 73, but he's the youngest 73-year-old I've ever come across in my life. I thought it was a home run hire. I really do. Now it's going to be based on what kind of staff he brings in and who he's able to build around him that does more of the day-to-day coaching and less of the culture kind of stuff that Pete is so good at. and obviously he needs a quarterback. But in terms of bringing in someone who's going to excite the fan base there, who's going to create that kind of, foundation that they really need, it seems like you couldn't ask for anybody better. So I'm guessing he was bored as hell in retirement this last year and needed to do this. And it's not that dissimilar from Belichick going back to North Carolina. Like, Bill Belichick is the head coach at North Carolina. He's going to be the final say on things, but he's not the day-to-day coach at North Carolina. Pete is going to be the culture builder of everything that happens with the Raiders, but hopefully on game day he has someone to tell him how to use his timeouts. But
he's
otherwise,
got Tater. Tater's coming back. Tater's got to be back. Tater's going to work beautifully in Las Vegas. Curtis, how do you think he's going to do?
I think Pete's going to do just fine. I can't tell you how many different radio interviews I've had over the last 4 or 5 years where it was like, well, when's Pete going to retire? He's got to be looking to retire, right, and step away from this. And I was like, you guys do not get what Pete Carroll's all about here. He is, I don't know what Pete would do without having this football coaching on his plate. And he probably felt that way this year when it wasn't there for him. And heck, he might get the whole band back together in Vegas. It might bring Darrell Bevel back as coordinator. Russ might come in to be the quarterback. Like, it might just be run it all back down there in Las Vegas, which I am all here for.
Marshawn lives there. He lives in Vegas.
Sure. KJ come in, coach the linebackers. Like, they might just bring the whole crew back together in some form or fashion. Ken Norton available. Chris Richard, somebody bring him in as well. They might just make it Seahawks South down there in Vegas, which there's a lot of people there that I like that he's had on his coaching staff through the years. So it would be kind of fun to see that. So I think Pete will do just fine. And as Tim said, like, whether it was Gruden, Madden, etc., like, think of the coaches that they've had. Josh McDaniels, after that bombed out in Denver, they decided to go back to that well. I think Gruden was even on the second stint here, what was going okay until the emails came out about what he said on that front that got him fired. Antonio Pierce, he got the short straw with just the 1 year, but like, he was also involved with the Arizona State stuff that got them in trouble under Herm Edwards. Like, Pete is going to be a stable force for that organization, and they need it. And Tom Brady's probably running the place anyway, so
of course
he has respect for Pete Carroll from the Super Bowl, the other times that they played against him through the years. So I think that kind of all went together to have Pete coming in to run.
And that's why it's interesting. We talked about Russell, but Tom Brady has always sung the praises of Geno Smith. I'm just curious Seattle doesn't have to do anything. That leaves a void for Seattle if they were to do something like that. But again, I think it is worth to bring up of Pete's affinity for Geno Smith, and does Seattle look at that opportunity of maybe wanting to get out of that? Hey, before you go. Look at this, Tim. Look what I found.
So let me ask you this.
I can't get it to play through the speakers. God dang it. I thought
we could hear it.
We could hear it, yeah.
Could you hear it?
Yeah,
we
could.
Is it impossible to get a cup of flavored coffee anymore in this country? Huh? What happened with coffee? Did I miss a fucking meeting with the coffee? Huh? You can get every other flavor except coffee-flavored coffee. They got mochaccino, they got chocochino, frappuccino, cappuccino, rappuccino, al pacino. What the fuck?
This is all I'm going to do. All I'm going to do today is going to go, right when we're done, is going to go back and watch all of that.
It's
all the Dennis Leary.
It's not George Carlin-like, but it's still pretty good.
And I forgot about that. But yeah, he's right. He's absolutely right. All right, boys. Appreciate it. We'll talk next week, and again, a few more visits before we shut this thing down. Probably go through the end of the Super Bowl and probably a week or two after that. So, thank you as always. Have a wonderful week.
To answer your question on the rundown there, pineapple on pizza. Yes, I'm a fan. By the way.
Oh, okay. You want this story real quick? Hold on, because I haven't got to that story yet. Because I was going to save it where Jim was supposed to be here, but then of course he had problems with his internet. So listen, there's a pizzeria in London that has had enough of people wanting pineapple on their pizza. They're sick of it. They're getting annoyed. Hey, can I get a ham and pineapple? Like, no, you can't, because it doesn't belong on a pizza. So stop asking for it. And then we're the customers. We want pineapple. So this pizzeria in London is now charging £100 for a pineapple ham and pineapple pizza, which is about $123 for a pie, like a normal, like 12-inch, 14-inch pie. They're charging $123. Now, shocking, they haven't sold one yet. They have not sold one yet, but to discourage people from ordering it, they've charged £100.
God bless that pizzeria.
Now, here's the thing. Now, because I've got stances, right? And ketchup, hot dogs. I'm not gonna lie. I don't go out of my way to get it, but I kind of like it.
No,
now, Tim, you don't like it at all.
Well, one, I hate pineapple to begin with.
Oh, okay.
But then actually putting it on a staple like pizza,
okay,
it's just sacrilegious.
I get it.
Come on, it tastes. So when I was a kid, I loved the Canadian bacon pizza. We had no pizza places in Ellsworth. We had like 2.
No, there used to be that really good one right by campus. I used to go there for basketball camp.
Frazzini's.
Yeah,
that was one of them. And then we had Pizza Hut. So I love the Canadian bacon pizza, but by God, they always put effing pineapple on it because no one just ordered a plain Canadian bacon pizza.
Yeah.
It was like they just expected it was supposed to be a Hawaiian pizza. And so they put pineapple on it, and I'd take a bite and I'd spit it halfway across the room because I had a goddamn pineapple on it.
Curtis, you like it. You're in.
Yeah, I'm a pepperoni and sausage guy, and then I'm a Hawaiian guy, and those are kind of the two that I kind of tend to bounce between.
Do you like jalapenos?
No, I'm not a spicy person. I am a wuss when it comes to spicy.
Well, you could go pepperoni, jalapenos, and then pineapple. Just saying. It's not bad.
What the hell is that?
I know. I don't even know what you call it.
Terrible.
I know.
God
I'm with
awful.
you.
That's what you call it.
But you have to understand. Now, to my core, I am just a plain cheese pizza guy. I don't like anything. No toppings.
The best thing about this Brit story is like they can do some weird stuff with pizza on their own right. You know, they over there. I mean, don't they put mayo on pizzas and stuff too? And that's one that I think would certainly be pretty unusual. And I like mayo, so that's not even a sacrilegious thing to me.
I don't know if they do, but I don't know how this place is. But yeah, they've just become, they're so outraged by it. There's like, F it. You want it? 100 pounds.
I respect it. I do respect it.
It's so good. All right, boys. We'll talk next week.
All right. See you, Puck.
There they are. Tim Booth, Curtis Crabtree. Ground Puck Seahawks podcast. It will be up later on the full show of the Daily Puck Drop. Full YouTube show there. So when you're on YouTube, as always, please go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click on all the videos. Something I'm going to do, I added it on Friday, and I'll do it moving forward. I put the Friday voicemails up there separately, just so people could enjoy those. So if you want to, check out Friday's voicemails, which we had, who did we have? Oh, John Facenda. We had, who else did we have? Gino from Maui? Oh, there was one more. Who was the other one? I'm blanking on the other person. Anyways, what a great job of me selling that. Good Lord. The Friday voicemails are up, and when we do them, we don't do them every Friday. It just depends on what we get. We'll put them up there on YouTube as well. And, of course, the full Daily Puck Drop available on all podcast platforms every single day. We release it at 1 o'clock. The Daily Puck Drop, including our guests, full show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music, which is a great one. If you like to go back and forth, like our guy Sugar Shane. Where's Sugar Shane at? There's Sugar Shane. Sugar Shane likes to go, well, that wasn't the one I wanted. Oh, that is the one I wanted. Sugar Shane goes, he watches it, but then he also listens to it. So I would tell Sugar Shane this. You, on the YouTube Music, you can toggle back and forth between the video and the audio. I love that one. That app is actually kind of my favorite one. So if you want to watch something and then say, I'm going to get in the car, but I still want to pick up where I left off, and it picks up right where you left off. So if you're watching something and you're like, I'm getting my car to go someplace, and click it over the audio because now I'm going to listen to it, so don't watch it in your car, then it picks up right where you're at. So that is up there as well. Let's see. What else do we got? Yeah, that's about it. Tuesday's show coming up tomorrow. We'll talk to John Canzano. Also, Danny Kelly. And then I'll promote this tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, we're just going to have no live show on February 4th. I'll have Canzano and have Kelly, and then we'll have something extra that I'll promote later. that will be available to everyone. But we're just going to have a taped kind of old school podcast coming up on February 4th. More on that later. I don't got to bore you with all the details on that one. Oh, and by the way, because since I did all the work, I want to make sure that I pay this off. Ladies and gentlemen, we are 74 days away. 74. It's never too early to talk about the greatest sporting event in the history of sporting events. Just put it on your calendar. 74 beautiful, glorious days away. Ah, there he is. Pat Summerall. I F you, Dan. Yeah, snooze fest to you, Dan. No one, Dan, F you. Dan in our chat saying snooze fest for golf. You know what? Dan, never say that again. We'll kick you out. You can never, ever participate in the chat. 74 days away. Dan, we're going to get, I'm going to be playing more of that as we get closer, so be prepared. All right. Oh, and speaking of that, remember we did our major championships last year where we gave gifts away? We'll be doing that again this year. More on that as we get closer to the Masters, which starts April 10th. All right. Hey, what the puck? As we wrap up every show, brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. Restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call. When damages affect your residential or commercial property, 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. All right. We touched on it a little earlier. I do not have Chiefs fatigue. Okay? I don't. And I understand how people do. I was also rooting for the Bills yesterday to win. So I wanted the Bills to win. But the fact that the Chiefs did it again, another trophy that they hoist for the AFC, and now they are another victory away in the Super Bowl from winning their third straight and fourth overall. Something, the three straight, never been done before in the history of the league. I love sports. This is why I do it. This is why you guys watch and listen, because you love sports as well. I love the history of sports, and I love when individuals or teams have a chance to chase and capture greatness. And that's what the Chiefs have. They've got a chance to capture greatness. I'm going to be pulling for them against the Eagles, despite I've got buddies who are Eagles fans from there, and it pains me. But I want to see them do it. I want to see them become the first to ever accomplish that, and I want to see them do something in which, in this day and age of football, is so massively difficult to do because of what we discussed earlier with Tim and Curtis. It's a sport built on trying to have parity. So to not have dominant teams. And we have seen now this team truly turn into a dynasty and be dominant. And what is amazing is normally you've got to wait between seeing like the greats before you have the real debates of who the greatest is of all time. You know, when we get in the whole like Jordan LeBron thing, we had to wait a few years, right? There was a gap between those two. And we had Kobe between that. With these guys, there's like no gap. We went from Brady now to right into Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes has a chance to put his legacy on whether or not he truly is the greatest quarterback of all time. And, you know, he's chasing greatness. He's chasing Brady. An individual award for him, and that carrot is Brady. Guaranteed that's for him. For Andy Reid and for all those guys on that Chiefs team. What they're chasing is immortality. That's what they're chasing in a couple weeks. To put their names alongside the Miami Dolphins, the only team to go undefeated and win a championship, right? And that lives forever. And so I'm going to be rooting for that. I'm going to be rooting for that and see if they can pull that off. All right. That's Hey What the Puck, brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle, your restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, mold damage with their property restoration services. Contact Trent. He runs it, does a great job local. Please support local business wherever you can. by the way. It's the most important thing. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, North Seattle franchise. Full show will be up on YouTube. When you're there, please subscribe to the channel. Pass it along to friends. Leave comments there. I try to get and respond to as many people as I possibly can. Also, full show of the Daily Puck Drop up on all podcast platforms, as I've mentioned. Apple and Spotify. And when you're there specifically on those two channels, because it helps us and boosts my ratings and it boosts the algorithm, right, for those podcast platforms, please leave if you have never done so before, please leave a rating and also write a review. Please. It would helps the cause and helps everyone here at pucksports.com. All right? When I say everyone, it's like me. An army of workers. And again, as I mentioned before, Puck's Posse members, you get all the free content, including VIP content, and becoming a Puck's Posse member also just supports Puck Sports. That is just $5 a month. You can sign up for a year, and you get a discount. It's $54. I mean, it's the deal of deals. For everything that I'm giving you, the free and bonus content, it really is the deal of deals. $5 a month. It's a cup of coffee, for crying out loud. All right, coming up on tomorrow's show, it's a Tuesday show. Again, John Canzano will join us. Also, Danny Kelly to talk more NFL, his thoughts on Klint Kubiak there as well. All right, everyone, have a great Monday. We'll talk to you on Tuesday's show. As always, promise to be better.
No shoes, no dice.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!